And, I must start by saying that I do not share everyone's view here that we should only go by our hearts, or we should only look for our own individual purposes. I think the mind plays an enormous role, especially if we're looking to have humanity survive and actually also move forward as a collective. Then I don't think we can just do our own things, even if our heart may tell us so. And so that's the reason that I think that I have devoted so much time, probably since it would be 40 years, basically studying the ancient calendar system of the Maya, because that's really probably the best kind of knowledge that we can have as to how a transformation may take place, as to how the whole universe evolves. And without knowing these things, I think it's very hard to find a direction that is meaningful in a bigger perspective than just our own. And so, but one of the things that really attracted me to be part of this 8-minute talk is this conversation we had the other day. And the number 8 then deserves to be looked upon from the perspective of the Maya. But even more so, this fact that here we're gathering inspirational talks from 4 men and 4 women. And because that's really the beginning of civilization. That's how the Egyptians would look upon it. The Egyptians looked upon civilization and the structures of their pyramids and so forth as having emerged from something they call the Ogdoad. Ogdoad comes from the Greeks, and so it means 8 actually. But then these were 4 female gods and 4 male gods, goddesses and gods. And they were the ones that created structure. And they were the ones that then 5,000 years ago, at least metaphorically speaking, were the ones that started civilization on our planet. And we find the same kind of a symbolism in many other ancient traditions. And since we are 4 men and 4 women here, I think it's important to say something about it. One classical example is the Noah's Ark. To me, that's just a metaphor, but it's a relevant metaphor. So there were 4 couples surviving from the Noah's Ark, 4 men and 4 women. And in other words, Noah and his sons and their wives. And then, emerging from that is then the structure of the ark, a rectangular structure that will place so much emphasis on. But you have the same thing also from many Mayan and Aztec cosmograms that they used to describe the world. Really, they had usually not male women, but twin pairs. And so they had these structures of 8 in their symbolism. And then if you go to ancient China, the Bagua symbolism is then 8 different trigrams that started writing, that started the creation. And you have the same symbol from the Mexicans in the Hunabku symbol, which is a duality with 8 different directions. And even so, the so-called Dingir, which was in Mesopotamia, that came out of the heaven, the god of heaven, that was an 8 partitioning. And so the Maya spoke specifically about this. They gave an explicit explanation to how civilization began on our planet. And they said that there was an 8 partitioning that took place in the center of the universe. And as that came down to the earth, structure started to reign and civilization began. And so this is important, because now what I'm talking about is that whatever structure we have of civilization, whatever large-scale transformation that takes place on our planet, it's not just coming from ourselves as individuals separate from the cosmic center. I believe fully that the Maya were completely correct in saying that this was a structure, a geometric structure that spread all across the universe. And something then that when the human beings 5,100 years ago downloaded that geometric structure, they started to create a reality down here on our earth, and that was consistent with that structure. Before that download, there was no civilization. Now, that's just really in a sense of humanity's path, of the cosmic plan that defines the collective path of humanity. It's just the beginning. It's just it's just a 6th level of a 9-storied pyramid. And since then, there's been other downloads of this kind of restructuring, new geometries being downloaded from the center of the universe, like the one that happened in 1755 when the Industrial Revolution began, but also when much more egalitarian relationships started to rule among people. People basically became much more humanistic. And then came 1999, came the 8th wave, a new download that created the world that we today so well recognize as the digital revolution, but also brought an intensification of increased roles for women in the world that didn't exist previously, and certainly didn't exist in the 6th wave. And then the final of these levels, the 9th wave, was activated only in 2011. And that's really something that calls for a transformation of humanity. It's an invitation from the cosmos to learn to download that particular geometry and be part of it and create a world of unity based on that. And this is really my current focus, not only to describe exactly how humanity has evolved through these cosmic influences, but I think it is very important for us to recognize that these transformations of civilizations, they have been given to us, really. We may be part of it, and we may act out their aspects of these and in a sense co-creating it, but we did not invent it. We have followed, we have been given these changes in consciousness from an outer source. And, you know, I would probably like to see humanity do something like the Egyptians did when they downloaded this 6th wave, the first civilization, which really was sort of a thankfulness. That when civilization first came, people were thankful about the possibilities that this would give. And now, what has happened since 2011 is that we have been given from the cosmos a possibility of taking the final 9 level, the final step to a new state of consciousness. And that's a state of consciousness that doesn't separate. It's a state of consciousness that doesn't say that one person is better than the other. And it's a state of consciousness, most importantly, that's not just about our individual paths. And in other words, we may develop how much we like on any kind of individual path, whether it's, you know, it could be a religious path, or it could be some more, you know, more spiritual sounding thing. I'm on my individual path, so people will say. But I don't think that we will ever get to the top level of the pyramid if we're just looking at ourselves as being products of individual paths. I believe that we have to take that final quantum state from going from a me concern to a we concern. And it's not just sort of, when I say that, I don't really mean just, it's good that people are generous. It's, you know, it's beautiful when people are kind. It's great when people have good relationships, etc., etc. And yet that's not what I'm talking about. I don't think that will be enough in order for us to reach where the cosmic plan wants us to go, which is to the top level, to the ninth level. In other words, to get there, we have to access, like the Egyptians did 5,000 years ago, we'd have to access a new state of consciousness that doesn't really work for us just as individuals. It has to be developed in connection with others, in collaboration with others, and in unison with others, as a mutual awakening into a new state of consciousness. And you know, I just would like everybody to call on everybody to explore this, to see if this is something you'd like to go towards, if that's something you're ready for, etc., etc. But I do think, you know, the future humanity will have to be based on that kind of a unified, shared unity, as you might say, or a unified state of consciousness. And